This podcast was recorded at the American headquarters of the Aetherius Society, located in Hollywood, California, where service is the jewel in the rock of attainment.
I'm Brian.
I'm Richard.
Thanks for coming to help us with these podcast lessons. And today is the fourth in the 9 freedoms, and this is enlightenment.
In 1973, after due consideration, the Master King devised and put into play an operation called Prayer Power, in which he brought forward to the membership and the world an opportunity to collectively, once again it goes back to this spiritual cooperation, not spiritual isolation, spiritual cooperation. And he put into play prayer and astrometaphysics. His understanding of radionics, his understanding of the laws of nature, allowed him great creative abilities, and he brought it into physical manifestation and created a spiritual energy radiator, and he created a spiritual energy battery. And throughout the years, for different modes of operation, he developed Operation Prayer Power that gave all humanity an opportunity to come together to combine the Tibetan Buddhic mantras and the prayers of the 12 blessings of the Master Jesus, invoking an enormous amount of spiritual energy, sometimes on a holy mountain, sometimes in a temple like here, sometimes in a small little hall, or sometimes in Caxton Hall in London. And as it developed, this battery would be charged with this directed spiritual power and captured like quicksilver, compressed, becoming cosmic energy. Now, it's easy to say what I just described, but it took him years. It took hundreds of man-hours for individuals to be guided under his tutorage, under his guidance, to create the machines and to create these devices to exact specifications, to a thousandth, sometimes to a 10,000th of an inch. Quality was his foremost key factor when he produced these essential pieces of equipment. Now, Operation Prayer Power. When we're talking about service to humanity, it's an opportunity for every single man, woman, and child to join in and invoke their divine power together and focus it into this battery. And from that position, when the world has drastic occurrences, for instance, earthquakes, loss of life, buildings completely destroyed, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, droughts, even wars. Operation Prayer Power is a prime example of how we can cooperate together, join in this freedom of service, not self-service, not selfishness, not praying from our home, getting in our car, driving to that center, spending the 2.5 hours in hard work for mankind, knowing with our faith in our God that this power that's been collected will be directed to the needy places of the world. I can remember, Brian can remember, those of us around can remember, if he caught wind of things that were happening before they happened. He knew that hurricanes were going to strike, let's say, Mexico, coming in through the Yucatan and hit Mexico. He knew, and he was receiving information, that this was going to be a major disaster, and he went into immediate action. His whole headquarters went into a combat mode, a military mode. He had people assigned to various areas surrounding the property for security. He had certain personnel staged in the SER rooms. He had the battery that was filled with a certain amount of energy, a certain quality of energy. He well knew, and he had it dispersed out into the world, manipulated by extraterrestrial beings and also Great White Brotherhood members to the target area. And he orchestrated the whole thing, consciously, standing up before a world map. Operation Prayer Power went into action, and if you read the news articles and if you studied the events, you'll see it was miraculous how things just worked out. Silently, it slipped away in the news. No one cared much more about it. Why? Because the miracle had happened. There's no news to miracles anymore. It's just another thing. It's like sunlight. Who cares? It's there every day, so what? So here we have an opportunity to perform a major magical service for the planet in Operation Prayer Power.
You mentioned how long it took him to devise the machinery, but you didn't mention how much time and trouble it took him to train us to invoke this power.
Yes.
I think
yes.
possibly he would have said that that was even the more difficult task.
Yes.
Because he taught the people back in the 70s when it started. Well, first of all, he devised the ritual where you have as Richard mentioned, the Tibetan Buddhist mantra circle and then the prayer team. But he had to teach the people how to invoke the mantra. And it's a very different recitation of mantra than is used in most places. Most places are very kind of gentle and beautiful sounding, but he had people be very dynamic in the initial times, very dynamic with his mantras. And then he also had to teach people how to invoke the prayer energy, to collect this energy with the mantras and collect it, and then with all your love and yet power, pressure, to push the energy into the battery. And he was virtually teaching people to manipulate energy as adepts could in the past. And he actually mentioned this on certain occasions, that a person in front of the battery with a team of mantra members around them, they are actually manipulating tremendous power, which only adepts could do in decades gone by. And this took a tremendous effort for him to train people to get that concentration, get that compassion, get that love, and put it together with the pressure to push it into the battery. And then also teach people how to assess this energy, so they knew how or what kind of energy, what quality energy was going in the battery. And it's quite an accomplishment. Watch it.
So what's Operation Prayer Power got to do with enlightenment?
It is a global healing service. It is one of the most powerful forms of global service that you can perform in the world today, bar none. And this is a direct comment from the Master Aetherius. It is written now as one of the missions as far as the cosmic plan for the peace and enlightenment of this planet, Operation Prayer Power is. It is a divine opportunity, let's encapsulate this. It is a divine opportunity for anyone to join in a spiritual cooperative event in which we can collect our energy, direct it to the prayer in this case. It's placed directly into the battery, and there it's contained until it's needed. And then it's dispersed. In this case, during the spiritual pushes, we have regular discharges.
It's a good question, though, what it has, because it's obviously everyone who will listen to this won't be near prayer power as well. And I think the reason that we bring up prayer power is that, in this freedom of enlightenment, Mars Sector 6 states that it's not good enough just to go through the bravery, the love, and the service. You have to go beyond that. And he mentions very specifically, manipulate your karma. And there's few finer ways to manipulate your karma than coming together in something like Operation Prayer Power. Also, it's good to bring yourself to a situation where you can join together with others to very directly and effectively help the world. It's really the key to enlightenment these days. We want to go out of our way to not go the direction of going into the hills and the mountains and do our deep breathing and do our things alone. We want to move the other direction and come together in different ways. It might be a 12 Blessings group if you aren't near prayer power. It might be other kinds of spiritual groups. Gentleman over here works with the Sai Baba people. There's many, many different ways that people can come together. But the keynote is, in fact, coming together. And Operation Prayer Power happens to be an extremely potent one, which we talk about here in Los Angeles because we can do that here.
So to summarize, and Wajid, thank you very much for your question and how Operation Prayer Power relates to enlightenment. And to go back to the words of Mars Sector 6, and let me repeat for emphasis so that we all can have a better understanding about what he says in clear English, is that enlightenment is a result of the controlled application of specific energies and procedures towards a predetermined end. So, Brian, wouldn't you agree that Operation Prayer Power is designed to apply specific energies and procedures towards a predetermined end?
Operation Prayer Power is definitely fits that bill very well, and it was designed specifically to do those things by our master, Dr. King.
And so therefore, if we are to start manipulating our karmic pattern, at the same time serving our world, this mission was designed to do just this. Now the question poses itself at this point, how does the person over in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or someplace in Paris, France, possibly, attend a center where Operation Prayer Power is performed? And this was taken into consideration in the original concept. And the method by which one can help this great mission, and thereby helping one's karmic pattern, as well as mainly and chiefly helping the world through this mass global healing mission, is to help financially. There are a number of needs in the funding of this cosmic mission. There is the repair of existing equipment, the maintenance. There is the replacement of certain elements of this mission's equipment. And of course, there are the costs to employ specially highly trained individuals, technicians, to build and operate these unique devices.
There's also the expansion. Already we have Operation Prayer Power centers in Los Angeles and Detroit. We have a center in Auckland, New Zealand. We have a center in London, England, a center in the north of England, Barnsley, and an occasional center in Derby. So all these places currently have Operation Prayer Power weekly or in some cases monthly. And as new centers get ready for this mission to be opened, we'll need more batteries or more other types of radionic equipment to get them on the air. And this is a very time-consuming and expensive endeavor, because you can't just go to an outside firm and say, build me a Operation Prayer Power battery, because they wouldn't know what you're talking about. So these things have to be done in-house. It takes a lot of time and care, and extremely specialized skills are needed.
Excellent point, excellent point.
Now, of course, even just praying for the missions of the Aetherius Society and being a sympathizer or a friend or a member of the Aetherius Society is also a form of support for Operation Prayer Power. There are many ways. Obviously, the best way, of course, is to attend Operation Prayer Power itself. But there are many, many other ways that you can help support this vital cosmic mission. And if you have any questions, contact us, contact a local center, email us, and we'd be more than happy to explain how you can help this essential mission move forward.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. You know, one last thought, that in the dreams of many of us in our youth and throughout our life, we kind of think about how can we saddle up to and be next to a master and rub shoulders and kind of join in a great spiritual campaign with a master. And here we have Operation Prayer Power that's touched by masters.
Well, that's another good point. It's said in days of old that the quickest way to advance is to be in the aura of a master. And while Master King is no longer in the physical plane of earth, he still has his missions, he still has his teachings. And so very much he created the Brotherhood of the Aetherius Society in such a way that it really, as much as possible, imbues it with his aura. And the more that you can associate yourself with his missions, with his teachings, then you are, in essence, in his aura.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great opportunity. Let's think about this. Contact us at the Aetherius Society website or by phone and investigate. Investigate this mission. We're just making this hopeful suggestion that you turn to this great mission. It's a wonderful opportunity to serve the world and your great karmic pattern. Very important.
And now let's move on and see what else we can get out of this wonderful text, the fourth freedom, enlightenment. But what's being said here is that to get there, you have to do different things than you had to do in the past. Okay, so the freedom of enlightenment, he's not kind of saying, he's not really describing the freedom of enlightenment. He's describing how to get to that enlightenment state. Okay? In other words, you do bravery, love, service, but then you have to do more to get to enlightenment. And he's describing in this text of what to do to get to enlightenment. And one of the key things that we're bringing up is prayer power, if you possibly can, is a tremendous aid to get yourself to enlightenment for the reason that we stated. Does that answer your question?
What we haven't covered, Wajid, in our 90-minute study group tonight is that there is a large segment that is not covered, in which he does cover in the 9 freedoms, and that is the description of what concentration, and then evolving into contemplation, and then evolving into true meditation. And that is a large segment of what enlightenment truly is, those states. And that's a series of events that we will enjoy on the proviso that we have bravery, we have love, we perform service, and then we will gradually, through these processes of these 3, we will gain enlightenment naturally via these efforts. It is not really a state of mind, it is a freedom. And once it exists, it's much like love, it's everlasting. And so it's not something we climb up a hill and we fall back down the hill per se. It's like it's a climb and it's earned. And once we reach that gradually through service, in which we all will, by applying these measures through the 9 freedoms, then we'll experience this beautiful, beautiful freedom. I'd like to read something here that kind of gives a very nice sweetness. Master Mars Sector 6. He says, the freedom enlightenment is the fruit which can be cultivated in the spiritual garden of terrestrial man, if he tends it with sufficient care, sufficient kindness, sufficient patience, sufficient tolerance. If he tends it with intelligence, if he tends it by manipulating his karmic pattern through the right service, this will grow, blossom, and will bear all fruits. Heed ye well, terrestrials. And so that this kindness, we speak about. It's interesting words. That's why we're studying this. These words, every word is so important to take in and consider and concentrate and learn to contemplate. These things are important for us to kind of touch more. That's why we started this group, is to kind of lift this great book up into the light of day and look at it and say, my God, what a wonderful resource. And there's no way that Brian and I can really give you these glorious freedom in an encapsulated phrase or some safe terminology, because it is a series of experiences that brings the state into being. But safe to say, we have been forming as much as we can the right pattern to set so that we can move through life in a positive way, knowing well by the words of this cosmic master that the forthcoming events will come to us.
It is a tough one. I mean, enlightenment, like I mentioned earlier, and Richard and I talked about it as well. We knew it was going to be a little bit different in these next three, because we aren't at enlightenment. It's for us. Frankly, it's theoretical, for us. But one thing that perhaps would be nice to read out now, just a very short thing. It's one of my favorite lines in this particular freedom. Ignorance is the result of the complication devised by terrestrial man. Therefore, enlightenment is simplicity. Note that, use that as the text for your contemplation, and eventually when meditation is possible, much will be revealed. So just to repeat that one phrase, enlightenment is simplicity. And if we find our minds getting all muddled with, psychic energy and mental and physical and what are we going to do, sometimes it's good to kind of step back and say, enlightenment, like God, is simplicity. And sometimes, like when we learned in the second freedom that love is more than a state of mind. And of course, love is one of the things that you use to get to enlightenment. So enlightenment clearly is way more than a state of mind. And so sometimes our mind can kind of work too hard on these problems. And you get muddled, and you get confused, and you get distracted, and you get upset. And sometimes it's good to kind of sit back and say, enlightenment is simplicity. And it's almost like turning off your head and kind of going either into your heart or into your higher intuition. And just let it come into you. Start to feel the way to go. Kind of revert back to the bravery and the love and the service. And if you use your mind to try and drag everything together and say, okay, what am I going to do today? What am I going to do tomorrow? It might be elusive. But if you study these in the background, think about them, and then when you're trying to decide what to do, go back to the simplicity and feel the right thing to do.
There's always a warning, and the masters always give a warning. And in the end of this freedom, Master Mars Sector 6 refers to discrimination, not racial discrimination. Discriminating as far as truth versus downright lies. And it's very important, and they teach throughout, since 1954, there were so many different beautiful transmissions and powerful transmissions that really isolated to discriminate, how to discriminate, and they teach from their position in the cosmos what to look for. So we're not going to do that tonight, but at ending here, discrimination is very important. He says here, for instance, while you slip like one of your animals from place to place, chewing here and there, you will not gain enlightenment. So it goes back to the service. Choose well, stand fast, know God. So there's a bargain here with the angels. You know, the bargain with the devil? Well, you bargain with the angels. In other words, if you want to gain enlightenment, which takes centuries and thousands of years possibly, well, let's start knowing that this is up the ladder we're going to climb by continuing the first three freedoms. And that's what we're encouraging here. When we get to, Waj is going to be sitting here, by the time we get to Saturnian existence, he's going to go, I have a question. And we're going to say, we don't have the answer, but we're going to support with all the resources that we have and support in so many different ways these glorious freedoms that we have yet to experience, but they're out there, and it's our future.
Speaking about discrimination, is one of these business books, I forget which one it was, I think it might have been First Things First, and they say that a lot of people focus on climbing up the ladder as efficiently and as well and as perfectly as possible. And there's lots of books, lots of techniques, lots of effort put into climbing up the ladder. But it's very, very important that you make sure before you start climbing up your ladder that it's on the right building. If it's on the wrong building, then you're going to end up on the wrong place. And so it's key to discriminate and know that you're on the right building. And that is the real, absolute beauty of the 9 freedoms, is it clearly tells you exactly what building you should be on, and even tells you how to climb up the ladder. Now it's up to you to learn how to climb up that ladder and really focus on climbing up that ladder. But at least with the 9 freedoms, you are absolutely confident that your ladder is on the right building. I think it would be nice to finish with that last extract.
Yes.
Let's just finish with the last, about a 20-second extract of Mars Sector 6 to kind of leave with a bit of power. Let's all just close our eyes. And this time, once we listen to it, let's just raise our hands right afterwards, and we'll just send a little bit of thanks and energy to this great master. So let's prepare ourselves both to listen to and feel the energy, and then give a little back. Mark, number 8.
Serve. Manipulate your karmic pattern. Then you will be allowed to walk through the dawn of enlightenment.
Let's raise our hands. O divine and wondrous Parabrahma, we ask that thy power, thy light, thy wondrous love might flow to that great karmic lord, Mars Sector 6, at this time. We send to this one, Almighty God, our deepest thanks and appreciation for this great and wondrous wisdom that can help us along the path back to God, helping all those around us as we do so. Finish with the AUM.
Deep breath.
It is done.
This brings to a conclusion the 4th freedom, enlightenment. Next week we shall continue our study of the 9 freedoms with the 5th freedom, cosmic consciousness. Those of you who wish to avail yourselves of the Aetherius Society materials and other holy works, please visit us at www.aetherius.org, your cosmic connection.